could not call in. So on the call today, we have our head judge for the tournament, Ann. Ann, is Mary Angelique going to join, or are you going to represent the judges tonight?
Yeah, she won't be able to join us today.
Okay, so Ann will handle all of the judge questions that you have. Dee Carabowitz, our head referee, is on the phone, and she'll handle all the referee issues. Bob Smith, who is one of our tournament directors for Tesla, will handle all the logistic things. Myself, Bob Hubberts, and then Sarah Lubick, who is our First Illinois First Lego League program director, is also on the call. So, Bob, do you have a couple things you want to go over, or do you want me to go over a couple of the logistic items that I had?
I think go ahead and go over the logistic items you have. I can cover some of the changes to judging rooms this year that are different from previous years. After you're done with your part and Dee and Ann are finished with their parts.
Okay, very good. So just a couple of really brief things for me, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ann to talk about judging and handle some of your judging questions. We have 11 people on the phone, so it's still manageable, I think, on the phone. But you can either send in questions via chat or via the phone. If we end up with a substantially higher number of people, the phone just won't work as well. But for now, I think we have a manageable audience. A couple of things just from logistics standpoint. We've got, every team has 8 scheduled activities between judging times and the table runs. It's really important that everybody's on time because we really can't wait if teams are late. The judging period, if you're late, you're going to end up with a shorter judging time. The robot runs are going to go on schedule. So we really just encourage everybody to make sure that they're on time so we can let the whole day run on time for everybody. For the practice tables, we are going to provide, there's 8 practice tables. We are going to provide all of the items that are dual locked down. Any items that are normally not dual locked onto the table, the team is responsible for bringing their own supplies. We're not going to provide those. So bring your own kit for the non-dual locked items. If there's teams that are interested in singing the national anthem or in participating in a segment we call magic moments, where people talk about a magic moment from their season, please submit a application for that by this Sunday, the 20th of January, and you can send it to the email address that's shown on the bottom. It's also in the coach's letter, FLL-volunteer@firstillinoisrobotics.org. Also, we're going to be showing some pictures of teams. We're going to, we have a presentation that includes, various information. I mean, at the tables, you'll see the scores posted. This other presentation, we're going to put some pictures of teams, and if you want to participate that, you can either send it to the FLL-volunteer@firstillinoisrobotics.org, or there was an email directly for a person putting the presentation together that was in the coach's letter, and those are also due by Sunday, January 20th. There was a email that went on a couple days ago where there was a link to food orders, and we're getting very close to posting schedules. We hope to have them up in the next couple of days for you, and we will send an email and we will let you know when they're posted at the state website, which is the firstillinoisrobotics.org. And if you go to the FLL Championship, we have various documents posted in there, and that's where we're going to put the schedules up, but we will notify you when we're ready to put them up. So that was it for just a couple quick logistical items. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ann to see if she has any comments she wants to share on judging.
Hi, sorry, I was muted. I don't, unless there's any questions directly. I guess the biggest change I think everybody should be aware of is the core values judging. Okay, sorry, I think I see. Should kids? I know somebody had a question. Should kids simply read from their posters or speak from memory about any core values thoughts? I think they're presenting their poster, right? So I think they're kind of walking through. I think they get like a couple of minutes to kind of talk through what's on their poster. I believe it's like 2 minutes to kind of walk through it. So they'll be able to kind of point to their poster and kind of talk through what they have done in that area.
Can I actually address that one? Because Kyle and I have been talking about the poster and changes to judging for state so much. So the core values poster is designed, teams can have the option of presenting the information that they have on the core values poster, or they can choose to tell the team story. So the way that we're looking at the core values poster is that teams now have 2 minutes to talk about the things that they want to make sure that judges hear. So sometimes you'll know in judging, if the judges have an extra 30 seconds, they'll ask the team if they need to share anything, or if, like, the standard question is, we have a couple seconds left, does your team want to share anything? This 2 minutes is that time for the team to share those things. So it can be a direct read off the poster, or it can be supplemental information to the poster. It is up to the teams to determine what they want to share in that 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be read directly off the poster. There is the first guidelines for the core values poster are out there. They went out in our coach's email, I believe. So it's up to the team to decide what they would like to present.
Unmuted.
And then the other change for those that have been at the tournament last year is that we're going to have for project design, project judging, there's going to be, sorry, I'll answer the question that just popped up, but project judging will be typically what we had last year was all the project judges would be in one room, and then we would have like 5 or 6 teams come back and present. But for this year, we're actually going to have 3 different rooms, and the kids are going to go to each of those different groups, different teams will go to each of those 3 different rooms. I think there was another question on the line about is the 4 minute the kids get a hard time limit like the project? Yes, so we want to keep that consistent. Core values judging. Will the team be allowed to set up the poster? When will the time start? Will the teams be told that their time starts now? I guess, Sarah, did you want to, when you guys did this, because this is new, I assume the judges are going to stop by, and we can give the judges they can have their cell phone and just time the first 2 minutes as they're kind of talking through their poster. I believe the posters are already going to be set up in the area. Is that how you guys had it?
But and the one thing we have said is that the time for the 10 minutes starts when they walk in the door.
For core values, is that you're talking about the core values, Judge?
For all of them.
Okay.
For the presentation and for the core values, the time does not start when the teams are ready. The time starts when they walk in the door. So prep time is part of their time.
When the first team member walks in the door is how they're viewing it.
Okay.
I'm not sure, maybe I misheard something, but the teams are bringing their poster to the core values judging session.
Right.
So some teams may need to set that up and put it on a table. From what I understand, there will be a table for them to put it on. Is that right, everyone?
There will be a table, but it will be in the front of the room, right in front of the judges. And since I'm on the line now, logistically, this year, core values is going to be held in a gym that's immediately adjacent to the competition room.
The small exertion.
And so all 4 teams are going to be in the same large gym. We'll space the tables out so they'll have a quick access from the door to their judging table, although I think we're going to have to amend the timer starts when they enter the room, because 2 teams are going to have to walk 15 or 20 seconds to get to the other side of the gym. But because all the judging is going to be in one big gym, parents will not be allowed in the room because it'll just make it too loud in there. But there will be a table, but there's just a single table with the judges, and I guess we can put the core values poster on that table.
That's a separate gym from the very large gym where the robot rounds are being run.
Correct.
Oh,
Correct.
correct. The one. And they'll be, we're going to have volunteers that are going to be traveling with the team. So they'll be, taken to that location.
And we'll need to figure out some way of adjusting the timing. So as Bob said, we're not penalizing teams that have to walk halfway across the gym. The concept, though, is that when the kids come into the room, but we'll give an allowance for the people that have to walk quite a ways within the gym.
So
By the way, I did see there was one
for that.
question on the placement of the robot mat, and Dee will handle that when she handles referee questions later.
I had a question about the timing again.
Go ahead.
Okay, I do get that the 10-minute timer is for the overall judging, but I'm still unclear as to whether the judges will tell now your presentation time starts or not, or will they just start from the very first time the first person walks in, the 2 minutes starts for the core values.
So, you can make a decision how you want to do it. The walking in the door comment was about the 10 minutes in total. So I'll leave that to you to decide how you want to handle it.
I think what we'll do with the instructions with the core values judges, we will let them say, okay, go ahead and start presenting. And we will have one of the core values judges have like a cell phone timer that will start, so they'll indicate to the students, because in this case, it's a little bit harder, right? It's not like the project one where you come into the room, you need to be ready to go, and you have that 5-minute period to, do both your presentation and your setup and everything. So in this case, because it's only 2 minutes, the kids can come in, and then we'll have the core values judges tell them specifically, hey, please go ahead and start. But we will tell them that they need to walk right in, and it's going to get going right away. So, but they will indicate to them so they know that the 2 minutes is starting. So we'll direct the judges, the core values judges, that way. Was there any other questions related to judging? Okay. Then, Bob, did you want to go ahead and share your set?
So Dee, I think, is going to go first and talk about some of the referee questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So everything that I'm going to cover is in the rules. So it's in the mission guide. But there's just a couple things that, based on what we've feedback from our referees at qualifiers, we want to make sure is very clear to all the coaches going down to this tournament and everyone ever. The first is that on any launch from base, a robot and all of its equipment must be less than 12 inches tall as measured from the mat. So if part of the robot, so let's say if an attachment starts taller than 12 inches, the team will either have to not run that mission, or any points scored by that attachment will not count. So please make sure to double check. This is on every launch, so not just on the 3-2-1 Lego. This is every time that it comes back to base, technicians handle the robot or interact with the robot and send it back out to complete another program and more missions. The next point is active technicians cannot be holding and handling anything on the field while launching the robot. So a team will have 2 active technicians running at the table, working at the table at the same time. They're going to launch the robot. So one kid will reach down to a trigger or sensor or press a button or do something that will tell the robot to go. The other technician and the kid pressing the button cannot be actively holding anything that the robot is going to use for that launch. So for example, if they're launching, let's say to go out to the solar panel, and they have a jig, neither of them can be holding the jig on the table while the robot launches using the jig. So that's the second bullet point here. The referee can see that nothing on the field is moving or being handled. So if we go on to the next slide. So let's talk about interruption penalties. This keeps going across slides. So we all know that teams can interrupt a robot. If a team chooses to interrupt a robot, they have to return the robot to base and they get a penalty. It's their choice if they want to relaunch the robot or not. If the team interrupts the robot, it includes tapping or interfering with or lightly touching or picking up and moving. That's interference, and so it has to come, or it's an interruption, so it has to come back to base. So a team cannot just like tap a robot back into alignment and allow it to keep running. This also counts once the kids press the launch button or trigger a sensor. They cannot interact with the robot until it either comes back to base or until they choose to interrupt it. So if the robot's totally in base when they interact with the robot after they've launched it, they don't get a penalty. If it's partially outside of or completely outside of base, they would get a penalty if they choose to interrupt the robot. So if we keep going on interruptions, next slide, strategic interruptions. So while strategic interruptions are not disallowed in these rules, strategic interruptions in such a way that the robot being interrupted is what scores them points is not allowed. So the reason for this is that missions are opportunities for robots to earn points. A robot, per all of the definitions and all the rules, is a LEGO Mindstorms controller and all of the equipment, and external sensors are limited by rule number 4 and do not include human eyes. So if we go on to the next slide, this is what this specifically means. This specifically means that if a robot is driving towards the observatory and the robot is driving really slowly and pushing the pointer, and it goes from gray to white and then moves into orange, and the team picks it up as soon as the pointer goes into orange, that would not count. That is a strategic interruption. So the robot is not stopping of its own accord. It is not scoring the points autonomously. It is relying on the interruption of the technician to score the points. So it's relying on the technician's eyes, which are not a valid sensor, to score the points. This also applies to food production. So in the case of food production, robots moving towards food production and is pushing in the bar. Students interact with the robot, interrupting it as soon as the food production bar switches over to green. This would also not score because the robot doesn't stop on its own. Next one. The last point on interruptions is at the end of the match, if a team does not intend to relaunch any missions or continue running any missions, they can stop a program from running and leave the robot in place. We had an awful lot of confusion at qualifiers with robots running into mission models or potentially unscoring things, and when in actuality the program could have and should have been stopped because per the interruption rule R14, if the team doesn't intend to relaunch, they can shut it down without receiving a penalty, which is that interruption penalty, that red puck. What this doesn't mean is that doesn't mean that things don't happen to the objects that they're transporting. So let's take the scenario that a team is out going to deliver satellites and they stop the program as soon as the satellites cross over the orbit lines. What they've done, while they're allowed to stop the program, they're allowed to stop the program per that R14 if you don't intend to relaunch rule. But they're still transporting the satellite. So the transporting of satellites still, the things that happen to that still happen to that. So in this case, the satellites would be returned to base. So if your satellites are the last mission, it should be stopping on its own. This is a really important rule, so make sure that the kids know that they're allowed to stop the robot at the end of the match. This will help them in the long run, especially if there's time left over. Okay, next slide. While at the end of the match and while we're working on scoring the table, the robot should be left in place team members should not be, any team members, not just the technicians, all team members should not be interacting with the table while 2 team members score with the referee. So we want to make sure that everything on the table stays as is, which means that other students who are not the active technicians at the end of the match will be asked to stay back while the 2 active technicians score with the referee. When the scoring is all done and the kids have clicked the save button on the electronic score sheet, then the team will be allowed to pick up all their objects that they've left behind, their equipment that they left behind, and move the robot back to base. Next slide. So as to the field setup question, the field gets set up. We're going to take the option to tape down the field. I'm sure you guys have all noticed, especially for those of you guys who've been working with the space travel ramp and solar panel and with the lander. Tape plays an interesting difference on this one. We saw a lot of field damage occurring at qualifiers because the mats were not taped down, so we will be taping down practice fields and competition fields at all of our state tournaments. So the tape, it will be a really thin line of gaffer's tape that only overlaps the black border on the east and the west ends. And then it will only flow onto the hollow core door, the horizontal surface. It will not move up the wall. Okay, next one. Now, as to the question about how the mat will be set up, the mat is flush against the south wall and centered east to west. So this means that the gap between the mat and the east wall and the mat and the west wall will be equal, or as equal as possible. And then that will be taped down. Is there any more slides? I don't know if there is. No, cool. Okay, so I see that there is a couple questions. First up was the crater crossing. If a team launches 2 bots across the crater and only 1 crosses, does that count at the same time? Define bots. You should be able to unmute and just verbally ask the question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So whatever you launch from your robot to cross the crater, if you launch 2 of them and 1 crosses and 1 doesn't, does that count?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so no worries. Crater has been a very complicated mission this season. If you guys haven't been up to date with all of the updates, I strongly recommend you guys read those. The updates number 6 and 8, for the most part, we wrote the crater crossing mission. Update 8 made it very, very clear and also added a little bit of leniency that wasn't originally in the rules. So if your team has any questions about crater crossing once they read the update and want to make sure that what they're doing is legal, everyone is more than welcome to email me. I will get back to them.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Just to clarify that one more time, it would be like a shotgun approach, right? So
you're for sure. So teams are totally allowed to launch multiple objects over the crater at the same time with the hope that at least one of them will cross over. That is fine. So crossing over includes going between the 2 gates between the 2 towers. So all of it has to cross between. So let's say like if you threw a 12 axle over and half of the axle didn't cross between the 2 towers, that would not count. So you'd have to have one of your axles go in between the 2 towers to count. Where between the 2 towers doesn't matter. It's from, obviously the gate all the way to infinity if you wanted. It doesn't have to land on the mat. It doesn't have to touch the mat. So as long as something crosses between the 2 towers in the east to west direction at some point, and all the other definitions listed under update number 8, it will count. There are many teams out there doing the shotgun approach of launching multiple objects, so that would be legal. Okay, next question, will it be made certain that no part of the mat will be under any part of the wall? The only part of the mat that would be under any part of the wall is the south part of the mat, that south edge, and all effort will be made that no part of the mat will be under any part of the wall. I believe for the field setup guide, you're allowed a tolerance of 1/4 inch on wall straightness. And so being an engineer, let's say that your bow is in the middle, part of it, we will try to average that out so that you don't have a 1/4 inch gap between the south side of base and the south wall.
There may be, the competition tables should be very straight. The practice tables might have a little more warpage in the walls.
So Bob, Hubbard's, this looks like this question is to you.
So Paul, let me look at the schedule. What is your team number?
31669.
316. Okay. Let me take a look, okay? And we'll get back to you.
Okay.
So Bob Smith, that's it for me for referee stuff. So if you wanted to chime in with some other things.
So, and kind of to help Paul with his question and to help Bob, I'm making the executive decision that for the judging, so this year, robot design judging is going to be in a separate room. It's not on the competition tables. So for judging, you'll go from the gym to a judging session and back to the gym. The time between the start of one judging session and the start of the next judging session will be a minimum of 30 minutes. And keep in mind that interspaced in there is going to be a practice round. So it's going to be very important that you're at your pit table 10 minutes before a judging session, because a volunteer is going to come and pick you and the team that's in the table next to you and escort you to your judging room and then take you back to the gym, main gym. In some cases, you're going to be there for 10 minutes and then go back to your next judging session. So for teams that like to sit and prepare for 20 or 30 minutes before their next judging session, that might not be an option. So you want to be prepared for all of your judging sessions when you walk in the building in the morning. And as I said, the core values judging is going to be, all 4 teams are going to be in a relatively large gym. But because there's 4 teams in there, and because, you know, parents do tend to like to whisper to each other, parents are not going to be allowed in the room. And I think that is about all. And all of the judging rooms, except for the core values room, the distance from the door to the judging table is very short. So the only modifications we might make to that time starts as soon as they enter the room is in the core values room. And I believe that is all. But if you have any other questions, and I think anybody who's been at the event in the past will be happy to know that we are not using any racquetball courts for judging rooms. Except we might end up using a couple of squash courts for robot design judging because of a conflict with a couple of rooms in the ARC. We'll make that determination tomorrow. But those particular squash courts that would be used are self-contained, so you won't hear any echoing from any other rooms.
Other questions?
For robot design judging, will there be a table in the room to show off the robot and/or attachments? Yes, the table that will be available is the one that the judges use. I can check and see if we can put a second table in those rooms.
But Bob and Ann, I think the intent is that we weren't going to have really tables for teams to run missions. So I don't know, Anna, if you're going to allow teams to run missions on the because we're not putting normal tables, 4x8 tables in there.
No, but there should be and actually to make things easier and fair for all the teams, the table that will be used to show off the robot is the one where the judges are sitting. So it's going to be a standard 30-inch by 6-foot table.
Sorry, Brian, I misunderstood your question.
Yeah.
Are the parents allowed in project and design judging?
Yes, parents are allowed in project and design.
Parents are allowed in project for the initial, but not for callbacks, right?
Right. Actually, I should not have said that. That's Ann's call, not mine, about parents and judging.
Yeah, you're correct. For the first wave, you can be in the room, but for the callbacks, we won't have that because we have very, very limited time. So, but just realize though, the way that we're gonna set this up for this year is that as soon as you guys walk in, you have 5 minutes to do the presentation. That eats into your time. So my suggestion would be to let's come in and get going, so they're not penalized for all the parents walking in the room. So I would plan for that.
Does that 5 minutes include the questions also?
No, they get 5 minutes from the time they walk in, and then they get another 5 minutes for the question and answer session.
Thank you.
While I'm thinking about it, if any of your team needs to use an elevator instead of using stairs, if you can send a message to the team coordinator, just so that we know, and we might have an extra volunteer there so that the team goes down the stairs and somebody else can be escorted through the elevator.
Any other questions, coaches? Any closing comments, Ann, Dee, or Bob, or Sarah?
As usual, it's going to be a great event, and we've arranged, the latest forecast says there's no snow, but the high is going to be a balmy 10 degrees.
Yeah. And I think one of the concerns that was brought up in previous years is we want to be conscious about the timing, right? We want to be consistent from team to team. So one of the things we're going to be instructing the judges is, for sure, we're going to, as you guys are getting your coaches, you have already gotten this as your coaches information from Kyle, but we're going to give the kids a little bit of a heads up instead of like cutting them off right away. I mean, they'll not like more than a couple of seconds, but it's not so abrupt. So we're going to be coaching all the judges. So that there is some restrictions, right? We're gonna we do expect the student the team to start. The clock actually starts as soon as they enter the room for both the project and the robot design. But we will try to be a little bit conscious of how we we will let them finish the sentence if they're in the middle. I mean, we're not going to cut them off at mid-sentence. So that's one of the coaching, one of the advice we're going to be giving to the judges. And I know there's going to be a lot of the core values is the whole format is completely new. So we're working through that. We're going to give a lot of guidance to our core values judges on that.
Okay. Well, very good. If no other questions or no other comments, thank you all for joining. And Sarah, you're going to get the recording posted and get the link to the team to send out to coaches?
Yes, I will get that to the Tesla team.
Very good. Okay, thank you, everybody. See you all in a week and a half. And get those.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Ms. G.